Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. My name is Corey, and I'm here with Tarek!
Heidi ho!
We are hopefully finishing up the weapons and armor category today, but maybe probably not. Like, we go rather slowly through these things. But we have a comment.
There's a lot to do.
And this is going to take a while, because... first, let's get through some of the wonderful comments from Wargiz. He says from our last episode that the clan Warhawk is an assault class mech, and the Draconis Combine's designation for it is the Masakari after the axe. For you BattleTech lore enthusiasts,
Interesting.
If you're interested in BattleTech, clan Warhawk assault mech is called the Masakari, after a Japanese axe. And he also says, I always liked that the Ono was named what people said when they saw one being swung at them.
Oh no! That is pretty good.
That is great. I love it. Watching these videos over the past months makes me want to make my own tabletop RPG. Not that I have time for it, but still, I mean, the fire burns, right? The fire burns.
It matters not.
Okay, and the last comment is from Bitter Andy Man, and he has a hill to die on. He was the one who talked about the one-handing the wakizashi last time we had one of these episodes. And we talked about it. He really disagrees. And I want to give him his fair due. This is a very long comment. We are going to read the entire thing because he took the time. He took the time for all of this. He's got big opinions, and we need to give them their fair shake. So here we go. By all means, move on with your project so you don't need feel the need to read this out in your next video. Well, we're gonna read it out. We're
going against you for the first
but
line
thank
of your
you
comment.
Thank you for understanding the time constraints of a 1 hour stream every week on Sunday, and sometimes we skip a week. Okay. The length of the handle is the tiniest part of whether a weapon is wielded two-handed. And you really missed my point about this. You can hold an ordinary tanto knife in two hands if you overlap your grip, but nobody would ever want to do it. You could have a knife with a 6-inch blade and a 12-inch handle, but still, nobody would use such a weapon in two hands, even though the handle would let them. By the way, when I make that tiny pause and give emphasis to that word, it's in all caps. So I'm trying to
There's a lot of all caps here, huh?
Yes. It just doesn't make sense to wield it that way. And it's the same for a wakizashi. Even if you have one with a long enough handle to put two hands on it, doing so makes it less effective, because it is intended as a light, fast, wristy weapon, and a two-handed grip just restricts your movements, which you recognize yourself by giving it extra threat one-handed. So, who's going to choose to use a weapon ineffectively? Conversely, a katana generally benefits from two hands. As you say, you'd only choose to wield it one-handed if you had something else in your other hand, because the length and weight and balance of it means you need the strength and control that two hands have to offer. They are different weapons used in different ways, even if they have a handle of the same length. Parenthetical. Let's ask
Miyamoto Musashi?
Yeah, Miyamoto, he writes, Miyamoto Musashi, and see what he says. That threw me, so I want to make sure I pronounced it correctly because he says Miyamoto Musashi.
Yeah, Miyamoto.
And see what he has to say. Quote, if you try to wield the long sword quickly, you will mistake the way. To wield the long sword well, you must wield it calmly. If you try to wield it quickly, like a folding fan or a short sword, you will err by using short sword chopping. You cannot cut down a man with a long sword using this method. If you try to cut quickly with a long sword, as if using a fan or short sword, you will not actually cut even a little. They are different weapons. Uh, End quote. They are different weapons used in different ways, not the same weapon with a slightly different blade length and slightly different deadliness. End the parenthetical. Your rules. Do you do as I'm sorry. It's your rules. Do as you wish. But in my opinion, verse Veris I hate this word.
Verisimilitude.
Yes, verisimilitude requires that a weapon stats/profile reflect how they are used. You could wield literally anything in either one or two hands. Even the heaviest weapons in the list can be swung one-handed if you try. It's totally ineffective to use it that way, but it would be physically possible. The rule writers should, in my opinion, look at how weapons are used, taught to be used, and how effectively they are used, and present that as the profile for the weapon in the rules. All in my opinion. Thoughts?
I have many. Um, that feels like something that should be addressed like one point at a time. So let's start with wakizashis. Wakizashis as a blade are still used. They're still curved blades, right? Meaning that they're much more useful in the slice or slash than they are in the thrust. They are pointed so that you can thrust with them, however, and their handle is long enough to be like a hand and a half sword, wielded with a hand and a half. Meaning you're not putting two hands on the blade on the hilt.
You're
of the
not
blade.
overlapping your grip with any of these weapons.
Yeah, you're not doing this. You're doing this, holding the bottom to give yourself extra striking power, much like you would with a katana. To use your lower hand to adjust the grip and the upper hand to enforce the cut. And a wakizashi can be wielded just like that with your hand kind of underneath or at the bottom of the hilt to give yourself directionality and improve directionality. Also, if you're going to thrust with a wakizashi, you could put your hand at the back of the weapon and help to enforce the strike and thrust into another individual and add force to that, right? So like a wakizashi is ideally wielded in one hand because it's a short sword and designed to be used inside the confines of a residence or castle, not necessarily out on the battlefield in open space where you would much prefer a longer ranged weapon like a polearm or a katana, right? A long sword of some variety. And katana, even in Japanese history, have multiple different types of these blades. The katana is just one type of the like tachi kind of style blade. They have the tachi. They have the uchikatana. They have a bunch of different variations upon both those styles of weapons. They have the odachi and larger, curved blades, curved bladed weapons. So like, it's because we're confining ourselves to the core rule set. I don't know that we need to go into the broad spectrum of different one-handed, two-handed styled swords that can come later, because they are included in L5R in a bunch of different editions. But saying that like a Tanto can't be wielded in two hands because you would overlap them and it becomes ineffective is I think very silly to say.
Here's the thing about a Tanto. I think Wakazashis can and are used two-handed, and I've seen it. The only time I've seen a Wakazashi being wielded one-handed is when a katana is wielded in the other. That said, this is just my experience, right? But a Tanto, I've never seen it wielded two-handed. And the only time I think you would want to do that is when you are trying to like
Stab something.
puncture someone's. They're probably already down, and you're trying to puncture their armor to do that kind of thing.
So,
but in that case,
do you know what a rondelle dagger is? Have you ever heard of that term before? A rondelle dagger. They're the daggers used by like knights in plate armor to stab between the joints. A Tanto can be used in much similar way.
But the thing is that's when you'd want to use two hands on it. But that's already in the rules for like unconscious. If you're beat down and knocked down into unconscious, you get plus 10 deadliness anyways.
Yeah.
Because they assume that you're doing the due diligence to put all of your power into it to do the coup de grace.
And in the right position, somewhere, around the throat or heart or center of the chest kind of thing.
So yeah. I would say I would keep the Wakazashi two-handed.
As an option, optionally two-handed.
Yeah. I would make the deadliness on a two-handed Wakazashi 1 +1, not +2. Because I don't think you get as much power
leverage.
Yeah, that you would normally from using it two-handed. That's what I say. You can argue against me if you want for that. Otherwise,
I would disagree, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal to switch it to 1. If the katana is a +2 to deadliness and the Wakazashi is a +1, I think it still fits in the fantasy realm here that we're going for.
And I think Tanto should just be one-handed.
That I really disagree about, but
okay.
Because the reason why I disagree about it is because two-handing and thrusting with a Tanto or an Aiguchi, which is a straight version of a Tanto.
So like
actually, I think both of them can be straight.
So here I am like attacking with a Tanto, whack, 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 right? Or reverse grip it, whack, whack, right?
Yeah, the reverse grip is bad. I wouldn't.
On a Tanto, no, reverse grip is okay. On a Wakazashi, it would be bad. But on a Tanto, that's fine. Two-handed, straight like this, okay. So I think defending yourself is going to be harder than with one hand deflecting.
Sure.
And two-handed, right? What are your attacks? Like that, right? Straightforward. This is awkward. It does give you a lot more power, but it's really open. It really seems wrong. What other ways would you use it like this?
Our range is still 0, right?
A Tanto, like a knife, isn't small. A Tanto is like this long. They are long boys.
Can be. They can be long, yeah.
They are long boys.
They're not always long. Yeah. They can be anywhere from like 4 to 6 inches, maybe 7 inches long. After that, you start getting into Wakazashi territory.
Yeah. Okay, Wargiz says, I think a part of the argument is the way a blade is used opposed to holding it in two hands. You can't use a knife as a two-handed weapon as well as in one hand. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so if you use a Tanto in two hands, do you get like a disadvantage on defending yourself then? Do you have to spend more threat
that's your
on
range.
attacks?
No. The range is different. You're at a range 0.
But it's always at range 0.
Yeah. You're
for
at range 0.
for one handing
So
it.
two-handing, when you're at range 0, range 0 is you're literally on the other person, right? You're in
Yes,
their
you're in their
square. They're
square.
within 5 feet of the other person.
Right.
Right. So that means that if you're using it in two hands, you're not necessarily, you have to think differently than saying you're holding the dagger in two hands like this, right? And you're instead looking at using the dagger as a puncturing weapon and adding force behind it, right? That's, in my mind, the way that you're getting in to try to get up underneath somebody's armor in like a flap of the armor and trying to dig that dagger in as deeply as possible, much like a rondelle dagger.
So what you're saying is you want to use it like this, as you saying this is two-handed. Reverse grip.
Or even like this, like blade up like this, if you're going up and doing a stabbing motion upward, could also work and give you extra leverage, extra damage that would be going directly into the puncturing, not the threat of puncturing, but the actual act of puncturing. So deadliness doesn't matter, right? If I'm wielding it two-handed, deadliness does not matter to threat. So if I'm wielding it two-handed, I have to actually hit and do a critical strike, which means I'm going for some vital organ, vital part of your body.
I'm going to say the techniques that you're using seem like they're going to be really hard to pull off in an actual fight. If I'm coming at you with my Tanto, you're going to have to be blocking and parrying it. How are you blocking and parrying it while you're...
Or just outmaneuvering you with my footwork, right?
Maybe.
I'm getting in close, or controlling your arm, right? A reason to use it one-handed would be because you have your extra hand to then grab the other person, which is a snaring attack that can hold their attack off, so that you now, if a person coming at you with two-handed dagger,
that seems like an advanced technique.
That is not an advanced technique. That's basic grappling. That's one of the first things you learn in swordsmanship, is using your offhand items. Like in fencing, you can use that offhand hand to parry away the thrust, or to get in and grapple your opponent's arm to control that bind.
That seems like a technique to me. That seems like a learned technique that you can get. And if you say it's basic, sure, rank 1 then. But still,
no.
Like
I think that's part of swordsmanship and having martial arts melee and martial arts unarmed should come together like that.
But also is putting a lot
because
more power behind your attack to do more deadliness is also part of swordsmanship, but it's also a technique called striking as fire.
That's true. You can add even more deadliness to a weapon, but the weapon's properties themselves should still stay rather...
Wouldn't basic swordsmanship teach you how to take advantage of all of the power that you can get from a weapon and not just its base power? I can argue this all day on what is a technique and what is a pip of skill.
I think the difference in the argument that we're making is one of them is just taking advantage of an item's profile, right? Mm-hmm. Versus applying something additional to it,
right? And I don't need to take
advantage of a technique to grab somebody with my offhand, right? I have a hand. That hand has a snaring profile on it. I can grab your wrist.
I 100% disagree. You have to be trained to want to grab a sword or a blade or a weapon, because that's not how a regular person comes upon that. You have to get trained to do that. That's a technique, my brother.
That's not a technique. Look at the unarmed profiles, right? And then look at the martial arts unarmed skill.
Yeah, it has snaring, as in grappling your opponent, not grappling their weapon.
You don't grab the weapon, you grab their arm. You grab the opponent's arm to control their weapon, because their weapon is in their hand. Now they cannot attack you with that weapon.
So at katana range, you can't do that.
Exactly. You have to get in past the katana range.
But the thing is striking out and grabbing someone's...
There's no passing technique. There's no passing...
I think that the where we're getting at here, what our our miscommunication is I think you're talking about this as if it's defensive technique that automatically happens, and what it actually is a offensive technique.
It's an action.
It's an action to grab.
Yeah, but it's an action to stab.
That's
So,
fine. It's an
so
action to stab. Yes.
Yeah.
You can stab with that, but that doesn't mean you're using your hands to do anything. That's another action. If you want to passively being able to do that as part of your defense, that's a technique.
Yes, passivity versus active. Passive versus active, I agree. But I was thinking in terms of these are all active things that you're doing. If you want to defend, if you have your dagger in one hand and I have my dagger in two hands, what you can do to try to effectively nullify my attacks at that point is use your offhand on a turn to grab the hand controlling the dagger.
Sure.
Right? Then if you do that, I can no longer effectively attack you while you still have one hand free with the dagger in it to attack me.
Well, I could just grab. If you're one-handed, I can do that too.
Follow my. Well,
in fact, if you're two-handed and you grab my hand, depending on which arm you take, like you grab this one, now I still have a dagger I can stab you. If it's this one, now I have the dagger I can stab you. Like, if it's one-handed, now you can't. Now I have to grab it.
Think in terms of the what we have to do in making a facsimile inside of a game is think about these things in terms of action economy, right?
Yes.
So if I'm attacking you and grabbing your hand to like snare you effectively, you still have to use some type of action to break the snare. There's something that you have to do on your turn to effectively change that thing, which means I've still effectively grounded you for the turn, and an advanced technique might let me grapple you and then stab you on top of it as one turn to take away your ability to use a dagger and get my attack off effectively. That's an advanced technique, right? But the act of just grabbing your hand on my turn isn't necessarily an active technique.
No, it's not. You can just do that if you have a free hand.
Nor is the idea of maybe getting more range on your opponent by using a longer sword, right? Because that's an inherent property to the blade.
Right, sure.
So getting in close, the issue is, right, if you wield a blade, a dagger in one hand... I've lost the thread. Well, follow me.
Come on, let's go.
I'm picking it up, right? So if you're using a dagger in one hand and you're saying that I have more range to attack you, I can threaten you better, so you have to somehow overcome that threat. Well, the way that we do that is on your attack, you attack me, I have to deal with that threat by taking fatigue, right? The issue comes in with there's no passing distances. So if you're wielding a katana and I'm wielding a dagger, normally what I'd have to do is use some sort of technique to pass into your guard, which is very difficult in actual fencing, to get close enough to stab you. I have to somehow nullify your weapon, which gives you much more threatening range than mine does, and there are passing techniques that you're taught in fencing on how to do that, whether that's a beat against another blade to get it out of line so that you're more on line. There are techniques that you use for passing.
Stop.
There is no such thing there.
Stop. I'd like to talk about this one point real quick. If it's very hard to use a weapon to get into somebody else's area, that can be very not fun in a role-playing game.
I agree.
So we don't do that. Instead, we simply say that the larger weapon deals more threat when against the smaller weapon, and just leave it at that.
But does that mean that the weapon that I'm using is any less deadly? Which is my point.
No, that's why deadliness is a different thing.
Exactly. Because deadliness is a different thing. So two-handing a dagger, if we're not dealing with threat because or passing techniques, because that's way too complicated and bogs down the campaign, why would we change the profile of a dagger? Because being able to stab somebody with a dagger effectively with two hands to get extra severity to my actual critical strike doesn't seem like it's something that is outlandish for a dagger to be able to do. That seems perfectly in line with how you would use a dagger if you got up close and were trying to strike at a weak point in your opponent's guard.
Sure, I'm not gonna argue about this. It seems stupid to me. Oh
Okay.
no, I don't. You can't use a knife two hand. Nah.
It's silly to me. Exactly.
Nah.
It seems very silly to say that you can't use a dagger in two hands to gain leverage. That's how
But yeah,
people
you
use
can
them
use.
traditionally.
Couldn't you use a pipe, your Kiseru, in two hands to get more beating power? I mean, why is that one-handed and not the dagger?
Because it's much smaller and used in a different way. We're giving these unique profiles based on how they're used and giving them thematic weight based on the type of
Like,
item they are
why
and how
can't
they're
I use
commonly used.
why can't I use the Dao in two hands? Like,
Because it has a very short handle that you would have
short
difficulty
handle,
getting
sure.
purchase
Now
on.
we're talking about handles.
Now we are talking about handles because
I'm
the
just
DAO
saying.
specifically said that it had a short handle meant for one hand. It's like saying I want to use a messer with two hands. Okay, well you possibly could put another hand on there, but what is it actually doing to affect your technique? Affect you, the item profile. The item profile itself is still rather the same.
I see, now we're going in the other direction. So I could say the same thing about the Tonto and make it one-handed now.
You can if you want to
That's
say
what
that
I'm
the Tonto
saying!
only has, but you can
We
do that
can't-
if you want to say
we
that the
can't have it
Tonto
both
only has enough
ways.
room.
Why
You can say it.
why would we have it
Corey.
both ways then?
What? Okay, so any
It's
weapon
like
that we
you
design
can't
in
jump,
the system,
but you can jump because you can jump, but you can't jump, so you don't jump, but you can jump. We're doing this like the same thing.
No. There's a difference. There's a difference in
I
kind
can use
in that.
I can use a Dao now two-handed like this.
Corey, the argument is if you're using a weapon that's handedness profile is set to 1, then it does not have the option of using it in two hands, right? So
Yes.
we're defining what that system looks like. So if we wanted to say a Tonto, we don't want a Tonto to be able to be used in one hand. We want it to be able to we only want it to be able to be used in one hand, not in two hands. Then we just remove the second hand property altogether and say the handle isn't big enough. But there are daggers that are designed to be two-handed. So
I'm
what
not
do we
saying
do
that
then?
the handle isn't big enough. I'm saying it.
But that's the weapon profile, right? We're talking about whether the handle is big enough to support two hands. Some weapons aren't. Tessin, one-handed. Kiseru, one-handed.
That goes back to the exact argument that that our commenter said. It's not about the handle, it's how you use the weapon the most effectively. And if you're using it in two hands, it's not an effective way to do it. Handle doesn't matter.
It does matter because it depends on what you're using the item to do, right? Just like you exactly like you just said. I disagree with the commenter entirely because there are dagger techniques that require you to use two hands to stab somebody because it makes the leverage more effective in piercing through heavy armor. What do you do when you do that? You use a rondel dagger to stab through a knight's plate mail, right?
Yeah,
That's
but they're
how you
usually
use that
already
dagger.
down on the ground when that happens. Plus 10 deadliness.
That's not necessarily the case. It's not always that you get on the ground. If you get in close enough, you pull out that rondel dagger and you stab under their armpit. You stab in between their leg plates. You get somewhere that's going to be critically deadly to them if you get an attack off, because it's going to burst an artery, bleed them out, and you can move forward without having exhausted yourself in a grapple. It's only when you get into the grapple situation and put yourself on the ground
If you're
that
doing
becomes
that
effective.
while in the middle of melee, I do not think that they're using that two-handed. I would bet money. I would bet $100 that they are not using two hands to thrust into an armpit while in active combat grappling another knight. I would. That doesn't sound right to me. That sounds like the opposite of right.
If you're on, there's a great movie called, I think it's called The King, that has a demonstration of how this technique works, and there's a bunch of different videos on YouTube that will show you how the rondel dagger was utilized.
I'll watch one. We'll come back next week and we'll see who's laughing. If I find one person in active combat using the rondel knife two-handed to pierce through armor, okay. But if it is not, if I find nothing, if they're down on the ground and then puncturing down like that, that is a coup de grace plus 10 deadliness attack.
Okay.
Sure. We're all right. Let's move on. We've spent a half an hour on this. We gotta move on. Where were we last time? Where did we stop? You okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm
Okay.
okay. I'm just changing the way that this is worded because
we're keeping it. We're keeping it
following.
the same for
I'm
right now.
moving stuff around.
I think
if you look on there, I'm actually trying to make sure that words line up in the melee weapons thing.
So did we get
there it is.
through pole arms? We did not get through pole arms.
No, that was where we needed to start off this time. I think we got through Tessin was the last one, and that was it, right?
Yeah, we got through Tessin, and we were going to start with pole arms. I thought we were going to get to arrows today, but man, that was a huge discussion.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of agree, but there's one tiny part where we disagree, and we're just like, ooh, this tiny thing matters so much.
I think it's really unnecessary to get into like verisimilitude in a fantasy game. Like we are just trying to offer options that make weapons more appealing or more tactically appealing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily trying to make a one-to-one facsimile between items.
I agree on that too. Yeah.
Like I don't know that it's super important, but yeah.
So let's talk about
it'll all come out in the playtests too.
So let's talk about a Bacento. I'm gonna go ahead and look it up. Bacento. We're gonna look up some.
It's like a massive fat like it's almost
it's a
like
pole arm with a big old fatty blade at the end.
Yeah, it's like a nagamaki, but with a giant scimitar at the end of it instead of
it's cumbersome, it's durable, it's war gear, all sound really great. Is it razored edge?
Mm-hmm. I mean, probably, because most bladed weapons are razor edged, but you could say that this one's a little bit more thick.
It says
because of its profile.
It says at range at in one hand it has a range of 1 and not a like.
Yeah, because you choke up on the grip and you use it like a
It's not like a spear.
Yeah.
It's not like a spear that you can launch it out with one hand, because if you launch that sucker out, it's got a curved blade.
The weight is too heavy in the front.
You have to slash with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One-handed, it comes down to range 1.
And two-handed, you get +2 damage to it, which I believe in the base book the damage is like 4 or something like that.
So we're changing that to deadly.
Well, that's why these are just the base profiles from the book.
Yes. DLS +2. Is the deadliness going to be 6? I say that's fine. An Ono is 7.
Jumps up to an 8. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
that makes sense.
I think that's
because
good.
It's a big, heavy freaking weapon.
Mm-hmm.
A heavy pole arm.
And it's doing +2 in 2 hands, which is what people are going to mostly use it in anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Because you restrict it.
Oh, it does give you the like niceness of like a naginata is only range 2, so there's no real way to wield it close. If somebody gets in closer to you, you're kind of screwed because you can't keep wielding it. Unless you have a technique that lets you wield it at range 1, which I think there are like 2 techniques that let you do that. So Bacento, you can at least choke up on if somebody gets close and wield it like a closer ranged weapon, which is nice. So it still has some like utility purpose to take if you're looking to like do closer combat than that.
Okay. A bow is razored edged. No. What am I saying? I was looking at naginata. A bow is mundane. That is fine. I think a bow
it's just
is
like a
mundane.
stick, yeah.
It's just two-handed because it is a pole arm. Um,
I'm not sure why they didn't do a Joe staff as well in core L5R, because it's just a shorter bow staff, right? It's a range 0 to 1 bow staff instead of a 1 to 2 bow staff. You know what a Joe is, right? A Joe is the half bow.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
and it's wielded in
truncheons.
one hand. Yeah, they're truncheons basically. Yeah, and it's the base form that
They are
comes before a tonfa.
they are
Tonfa is a Joe staff with a handle, like a perpendicular handle.
they are what is it called? Um, they're Nightwing's Eskrima sticks.
They're Eskrima sticks. Yeah, they're very similar to Eskrima sticks.
All right.
Exactly.
I think a bow just has a very bad deadliness, and that deadliness should go up to, I think, maybe a 4.
I think a
like
4.
Shoku.
Yeah, I think a
Uh,
4.
what is a G?
Because you can still crack somebody over the head with that thing and bust their brains out. Like it's not terrible. And because it has a range 2. Wait, I want to ask you a question that I didn't get to ask last week, which is, when dealing with threat, is it the is the threat value calculated based on the maximum range you're attacking at, or the range you're attacking at point of attack? Like when you take the action to attack them, if they're at range
Maximum
1,
range.
you take. Okay, so it's always maximum range.
It's
Okay.
always maximum range. It says, when attacking someone with a melee weapon with a lower range, gain +2 threat for every distance in maximum range.
Okay.
This does not affect missile weapons, such as thrown objects and bows.
Which will have their own
maximum
damage.
range.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right, pole arms. Bow is 4. G is this really cool looking. Oh, by the way, Wargis says, shouldn't Bacento not be range? Should the Bacento not be range 1 to 2? Yeah. It is range 2, but you can one hand it for range 1. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's what in the book
L5R
is
initially
too.
said.
A
That's
G
what the core book said.
looks like this cool double crescent spear. It's got 2 axes on either side and a spear at the tip. It looks pretty dang great. You can put horsehair on it. It looks like a really very good weapon. It's got axing. It's got axing. It's got poking. It's snaring and war gear. I don't know if it's snaring. It's got those half crescents. Are they used for snaring, for grabbing people? I would say no. They look pretty deadly instead of snaring. They would be maybe disarming, because you can get weapons tangled up in the holes there. And
yeah, I think that's the assumption here, because they didn't have a disarming, they had a snaring.
Yeah, I think it's
so
disarming.
It's snaring a weapon, so disarming is probably more fitting.
Why is it deadliness 2 if it's got like a pokey part? And
Yeah, because it has it's like a halberd, right?
Hold on, I'm going to check it out in the book to see what the book says about this. So let's go to the book and read what it says about G. G, also known as Dagger Spear. The G is a long pole arm designed more for catching and controlling weapons than for direct attacks. Commonly used by the Dragon Phoenix and specialty among the Shiba Guardian school, the G consists of a long wooden shaft topped by a hook or crescent-shaped blade. That's exactly what I said. The G has a head consisting of a single long double-edged blade with 1 or 2 small crescent blades mounted to the side. This is a spear with 2 axes to either side. I don't know why
it's like a pole axe or a halberd.
If you catch somebody with it, they're going to take hurty damage.
Yeah.
That's not meant for catching and controlling weapons. Yeah, it's a disarming thing. Yeah. Okay.
I'd say put it as disarming and make it a deadliness of like 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5.
Easily.
Come on.
I'd even say 6, because it's like almost as effective as an Ono, but not necessarily as effective as an Ono.
Nah, it's not. I don't think it has the. No, it doesn't have the chopping power of an Ono.
I wouldn't say exactly the chopping power of an Ono, but it would still have some, like it's a halberd.
Yeah, that's why I'm like a 5 is good.
Okay.
That's one less than a Basento, which is this giant fu blade. Um,
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna say a Naginata. We're gonna bump it up to deadliness 7, and I think that's all we need to do with that.
Naginata. Actually, I think Naginata in the book has. Does it have something else there?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
I think that's fine. I think everything about it is it's Razored Edge, it's War Gear, it's cumbersome. I might give it ceremonial. Um, or I could see,
Yeah.
you know what? I could see giving both Basento and Naginata, Oni Slayer, Oni Slayer 1 for
Yeah, because they're kind
Naginata.
of designed.
Yeah, Oni Slayer 1 for a Naginata and Oni Slayer 2 for a Basento.
Yeah, I can see that because they're good at attacking things larger than them, for sure. I'd honestly almost give both of them Omni Slayer 2.
Nah, I think Naginata didn't have a as long and beefy of a blade.
It has a major blade on it, a Naginata, but
And
um,
I want to give
it's not as
people.
heavy.
I
I
want to
guess.
give
But, I mean,
people.
they're both cumbersome though.
They are both cumbersome. So the thing is Basento does not have Razored Edge. Naginata does. So
I guess that's fair.
if we give Oni Slayer 2 to Naginata, that gives Naginata the edge over Basento. If we give it Oni Slayer 1 and Basento Oni Slayer 2, there's more of a reason
Except Basento has a +2 deadliness
when
when
two-handed. So
two-handed.
it has an 8
So
deadliness.
it's a base of 8
It
when you
has
wield it.
listen to this. It has an 8 deadliness when used one-handed. Naginata has a 7 deadliness, but it's a Razored Edge, so you can bump up that deadliness.
Then what I would say though is put Oni Slayer 2 on two-handed. It gets Oni Slayer 2 while you're wielding it two-handed, not while you're wielding it in one hand.
Okay.
And then yeah, because if you're giving it Oni Slayer 2 and they're wielding it in one hand, that feels like it just gets the better profile.
Sure. Who wants tridents? Tridents.
I like gum.
I would say tridents are snaring. They're snaring.
I would say they're snaring. I would actually say they can be snaring and disarming.
Yeah.
Because you could use it for either one.
Snaring, disarming,
Just
war
not
gear.
the same, not both at the same time.
Deadliness 5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
And I'd also give it
throne.
I'd almost say it gives the throne property. Yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna say one-handed. You can do one-handed to give it a threat +1 because tridents can 100% be used one-handed.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then give it the throne property.
And then yeah. Oops. Throne. I love that.
You got to give it a range.
Oh, not far. Like
1 to
3.
2.
Yeah. No, you can't throw it at 1. That's like right next to you. Like 2 to 3, right?
Yeah, I guess 2 to 3 would work.
Yeah.
Same with a spear, like a Yari would also get the throne.
Yaris,
1, 2,
I
2 to
don't
3.
know about that because like a Yari isn't like a throwing spear. These are long spears.
They're like pikes
yeah.
in a sense.
I don't know
they're
if they're
essentially functional as pikes.
I don't know if they are like thrown weapons necessarily. These types of spears.
There are Yari throwers, the spear throwers. Like even the old, and I'm not saying this from like historical point of view. I'm saying this from an L5R point of view. There is the old spearman card that wielded Yaris. Remember the old follower that you could
Mm-hmm.
attach to your characters? It had a range 3 attack that you could do
Oh,
every time because you were throwing the Yari, throwing the spears. So that's
I
why I
think
think giving it a throne
I
property, I
think
wouldn't give it a very large throne property, but like a 2 to 3 is fine for a spear being
I
chucked.
think this is what I think about the throne quality on a Yari. I don't necessarily think for a Japanese spear like a Yari, that's something that historically they did at all. But this is a fantasy game, and I think people expect when they see a spear that it should be thrown. And so we're going to live up to that expectation, and because it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. What else? I would also say it gets Oni Slayer 1 because it's designed to be piked into the ground and charged
You're
into.
absolutely right. Yep.
And I kind of want to say it makes me want to invent a new grip style, which is set versus charge, and then it gets Oni Slayer when it's set versus charge. But I guess technically it's a range 2 weapon, so like being able to thrust up at a larger opponent is good enough. Like I don't know that we need to get more complicated than that. But it does it gives me that initial instinct of being like, this is a pike, and pikes are set to like absorb a charge.
So again,
which is what these were actually used as.
Yes. Again, Yaris are amazingly long. They are not the same kind of spear you see Jet Li use in like Hero.
No.
Those are
They're
a
not a
different
typical
kind of spear that you could definitely one hand.
And they're floppy. Like
yeah.
Yari are very straight. They're made to get an impact on them.
Whereas tridents are short. They are short
and
things.
Sturdy. Yeah.
In fact,
I almost want to give Yari durable.
I want to give tridents two-handed a range of 1.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's not able to be extended as far.
Yeah, instead of giving it one-handed +1 threat, I want to give it range 1 deadliness +1 because they're not long weapons, and if you use it two-handed, like
yeah, you're just poking out right in front of you.
Yeah, and if
within
you use
5 feet of you,
you'll have the same range as like a katana or other swords, and if you use it one-handed, you can go wham and just get somebody way far away from you. So yeah. I think a trident should be range 2 one-handed, range 1 two-handed, but +1 deadliness. Yeah, I think that's good. And a Yari is just two-handed. Yaris are they're really big.
Okay, and hear me out here. Do you? Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't go this far. But I was gonna say maybe a Yari gets a larger range.
A 3? No, I think 2 is because here's the problem with going to range 3. Range 3 is 3 squares. Like range 1 is 1 square away. Range 2 is 2 squares away. Range 3 is 1, 2, 3 more.
That's true. Yeah, it's 5 squares, up to 5 squares, and that's insane.
Unless we're gonna totally fuck with range.
That's why I was saying I don't know if I should even say it because that would require us to change how range increments work with melee weapons, right?
And we are going to change the terms that are used. I think we're gonna just change. I don't think we're going to change range bands for weapons. I think those are fine. I think we're going to change range bands for moving around.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to change it to just you can move a flat number of feet and that's it. It doesn't matter if you're using a map or not. Just be like, everybody uses it in their heads anyways. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why not just change range into like short, medium, long, and extreme for moving around? Because otherwise, like, okay, are we in range 3 or 5 or what is it in my head again that we're Like,
Yeah.
just
Which one are we using? Like,
just
it just gets really bogged down.
if you're
With
well, the thing is with 6 range bands in Mind's Eye and not map, that's a lot of range bands compared to like if you just used short, medium, long, and then there's like, are you within immediate range, short range, medium range, or long range? And then everybody goes, oh yeah, I get that immediately. That makes sense to me. That's
Yeah.
what is 4? I don't understand 4.
Yeah.
Where's
Range
4?
What does that look like? Yeah.
How does that line up with the size of this room or what's going on?
Especially because movement is just like number times 3, and then weapon is completely like exponential. It's like 1, 2, now extra 3 range bands. Now 5 is like an extra 10 range bands or whatever.
The movement times 3 is only for maps. It's not for Mind's Eye, and you've only
I know.
You've only played with the map stuff because that's how I use it. Because I find
I've played with Mind's Eye a couple times with it, and it just doesn't.
It's confusing.
It's confusing.
It's way too confusing.
It's confusing. Yeah.
And then people get mad because they're like, "Wait a minute, I can move in one turn like 50 feet by going from range 6 to range 3." But once I get to range 3, I can only move like 5 feet.
And
what?
being range 3, but if I'm range 3, range 3 from an opponent, then in Mind's Eye, then I would think that I could hit them with a technique that allows me to hit them at range 3, but I technically can't because they're actually maybe range 5 from me still, considering melee or like ranged attacks.
Then you have to take the time out of the game and explain, look, the closer you get to your opponent, the more pressure they put on you. And so you're naturally slowing down as you get closer. Oh, that makes sense. But not if I rush past a person that I'm not attacking that might be hostile
also
to me.
Trying to threaten me.
No, not that person. No. Not that person.
Like, that guy's relevant. Yeah. Don't worry about him. That guy with a spear that you just ran by, don't even worry about him. He's fine. He wasn't going to hurt you anyway.
Yeah.
It breaks down in a lot of different areas.
All right. Unarmed profiles. Punch, kick, bite. Punch is snaring. Yeah, sure. I also think bite is snaring. Why isn't bite snaring? You're literally holding onto them with your teeth. I think
punch should be snaring and disarming, because you could use it to disarm somebody as well.
Sure. And
I think kick is 1L instead of 1H, which is funny to me. The only thing that is 1L. And I guess kick could be 2L too. You could do a 2L, but you gain prone as a result, like doing the drop kick style, you know?
A bite is snaring. It just is. I just bit into you, and I'm holding on. When you bite somebody, you don't just let go.
Yeah, you don't go "I'm" and then let go. You dig in. You dig those teeth in.
You dig in. That's right. All right. I thought we were going to do arrows today, but I mean, we got 3 minutes left.
Let's do kick too, because I think kick and the profiles. I think range is fine.
Range is fine on a kick. Kick is range 1. I would make it 0 to 1 because you can knee somebody. Kick.
Yeah, you can
knee somebody. Knee.
0 to 1.
0 to 1.
I like it. I think I also, like I said, I think you can do 2 kicks. You can kick with 2 legs, but you gain the prone condition. I think doing a drop kick is a thing. You can jump up and kick them with 2 legs.
I'm going to say that's a tech.
Okay, fine. Do you think the deadliness is good on this? Punch of 2, kick of 1.
The deadliness of a kick should be 1. Yeah.
Of a kick should be 1?
Oh, no. What am I doing? Punch is 3. Kick is 2. Bite is 4. Everything goes up because, yeah.
I was thinking kick or knee could be at least a 3 or more, because a knee to the face or a kick to the face can kill you.
I think that there should be something special for an unarmed attack that makes it useful in some
Yeah.
ways. And I don't know what that is. Whether it's something that can tire somebody out more so they can fall down, or it's something like I don't know.
Grappling?
Huh?
Grappling and clenching, getting in the clench or grappling
We
somebody
want to make
tends to wear you
total
out.
new grappling rules.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So that is one way of making unarmed fighting more effective. And two, I think there should be unarmed techniques that allow you to
there
do
are no
things
unarmed
that
techniques.
raise
I think there should be a whole slew of them. The Dragon
of
book
unarmed
came
kata.
out, no unarmed
Yeah.
techniques. What the
Yeah.
hoo hey?
Yeah,
Instead, they
a
had
few
pole arm techniques in
kata
that book.
that can be used unarmed, but not many, and I think they deserve more.
This is what I want to do. So, punch, kick, bite, all of these techniques are made to wear an opponent down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there needs to be a new thing for these I think there needs to be a new technique, and I'm not a technique, what are they called? A new quality. That's right. A new quality on these unarmed profiles that make you wear down your opponent. I'm not sure what it's called, but what I'd like it to do is you can spend a void to add threat. Spend a void to double threat, or add a void.
So I like that because it leans into the kind of martial artist aspect of the culture. So that being unarmed, because you see in like popular culture martial arts that an unarmed person can fight a person with a bunch of swords and they still are fine, or a bunch of people with swords, I should say, not one dude with a bunch of swords.
We have like kung fu monks in this game, and they should feel okay, and it should feel like, everybody should know kung fu. If one person knows kung fu, everybody knows kung fu, obviously.
And everybody has a different kung fu.
We've seen Jackie Chan. Everybody knows kung fu.
I was thinking of something like sapping, which just gives you the ability to do more damage, do more threat to your opponent each turn. And like the longer you go on with attacking with a sapping weapon, it like continuously adds more.
I like that. Sapping, every consecutive strike with the weapon does +1 threat.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because it shows that you're wearing somebody out, and it's designed to wear somebody out, and that can be used on different weapons, including your unarmed profiles.
So punch and kick could have sapping. Bite does not.
No, bite does not have sapping. Bite has infection.
Infection. No, I like that. No, sapping.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back and give it to the bow as well.
Yeah, give the bow sapping. I think that works too.
And give that maybe to the club. I don't know. I wouldn't give it to the hammer.
A club I can see having sapping.
Yeah.
For sure. And the bokin.
Oh, yeah. Then the bokin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I'll
right.
add
The
it to the bokin.
bokin would definitely have sapping. I love this. Yep. You already got it. What's the giant hammer? The Osuchi?
That's the Otsuchi, yeah.
So the regular
it has
hammer
enough.
wouldn't. The Kiseru would.
Kiseru would have zapping. I think that's right too.
I think the Osuchi is just such a big and powerful weapon. It doesn't need anything else.
It doesn't. It really
Yeah.
doesn't.
Tetsubo and Osuchis don't. But the Kiseru and the club, they should have sapping. I like that. Yeah. Tell us what you think. Is this an overwrought rule that will slow down gameplay? Will it confuse people because they don't know how many consecutive attacks they've had on their opponent? Or is this something really cool that you think would gives some underpowered attacks better use? Uh, against the same opponent.
There you go.
All right.
I think that works. We can probably clean up the language a bit. If opponent is switched, if attack
by attacking a different opponent
or
missing an
yeah.
attack or skipping an attack
skipping an opportunity to take an attack action. Yeah. Yep. I think that is good.
One more thing. There. Attacking with a different weapon also counts. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
There we go. I love that. Now I have to change the title of this here and on
Arrows and armor
on Moonbeam and make a new thumbnail for it. Darn it! Anyways,
I'll start making a table for that in the coming week, and that way we're all ready for it.
Arrows and armor, bows and armor coming up next week, not this week as we thought. Okay, we're gonna do Shadow Empire tonight, so come see us then. We'd love to see you for our L5R role-playing game that we do. That doesn't use these rules. We use rules as written, but maybe we'll use these one day.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
Since we have it covered.
In 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sign up for my backer kit adventure, my fantasy adventure, so you know when it's coming out on June 11th.
Do that.
What else? Tarek, you got anything you need to say?
Have a great day.
Yeah.
You know, have fun. Go play some games.
That's right. How do we say that here?
Go roll some dice.